Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
My family is originally from Mexico. We used to travel down there quite a bit when I was a kid. Usually we'd stay there for about 2 weeks at a time, always during the winter so we could celebrate Christmas together. But once, when I was about 12, we went down there during summer and I saw a duende. More than once. I probably saw it over a dozen times. I remember all of my cousins warned me not to talk about it or it might hurt me. The first time I saw it was just a quick glance, really. Me and my cousin walking to a nearby river. To get there, we have to travel up the village into the mountains, then walk down this long, winding path. 30-minute hike altogether. A portion of the winding path travels along a sort of ravine for a while. So imagine on your right-hand side there's just a wall of trees. On your left-hand side there's a steep bank of grass that rises up over your head. Cousin and I are traveling right through that part of the winding path when I hear something on the grassy bank above us. Look up. A very little man is walking along the top. Seems to be following us and watching us. Cousin tugs on my arm and tells me not to look. Starts talking about something else. I figure maybe it's a local wino or something. From my perspective, the man looked small, but not that small, so I just ignored him. We got to the river without incident. After that, my cousin explained that during the summer, duendes come down from the mountain Lumao. I asked her from where, and she wasn't sure. Some people said they came from inside the mountain, and other people said they lived in trees, or that they moved through stones. Like I said, I saw this thing numerous times. I'll mention 2 other quick ones. Get up in the middle of the night. I'm thirsty. Go to the kitchen to grab water. The window there faces a small outdoor kitchen. I see the duende sneak across the patio and disappear into the kitchen. Later, up to the corral with my cousin. They do bullfights there, and in general this area is used to move bulls from the village to a neighboring ranch, I think. The point is it's a very flat area with no grass, because it's constantly getting trampled on. All the trees have been leveled to clear the way for bulls. And then there's this corral which stands empty at the time. Cousin and I are hanging out there just talking when I spot the duende moving around outside Cousin and I ignore it. We keep seeing it out of the corner of our eye though. I glance over and it's gone. That one was extra creepy because there was nowhere for it to hide that quick. There's literally the corral and just open fields of dirt. It's like the thing just disappeared into thin air. Also, I know everyone has a different meaning for duende. Some people use it to refer to ghosts. But what I saw was a little man, much shorter than any of the kids there, wearing dark clothing. I've since heard lots of stories from other people who have seen them too, but they describe the creatures differently.
Be me, 6 or 7 years old, sleeping on the couch in the living room near my dad, slowly awakening, still halfway between dream and reality. Although my vision is still blurry, I can see 3 small figures moving. They are the size of rats, but look like small humans and move accordingly. They are crawling in a big wooden bookcase, and the one in the front appears to be leading the other 2, making hurry-up gestures with its hands. I suddenly wake up completely, freaked out by the scene, but there is nothing to see now. The first thing that comes to my mind is that they were rats, because we previously used to have a rat problem in the house. I awaken my dad and tell him about the rats in the bookcase, and he checks out the living room, finding nothing strange. Time jumps several years later. Dad casually tells me a story about how when I was a baby, I used to wake up in the middle of the night crying almost daily. He was friends with an old lady who had a small grocery store in the neighborhood. The old lady supposedly had some type of power to see paranormal things, and her husband was known to make limpias. She tells my dad that she senses that there is a duende making trouble in the neighborhood, harassing several children like the little shithead it is. The neighborhood was new at that time, previously being nothing more than an uninhabited hill with dirt and dry grass. The husband offers to do a limpia for free in my house. My dad accepts and everything goes according to plan. I never woke up crying again after that.
Some time after my friends had the baby, I wanted to visit them, but they always had a reason for not being available. One day I decided to go by myself and visit unexpectedly, and then I understood why my friend was so unwilling for me to come over. I went to their home and my friend stood at the doorway like he didn't want me to come in. By his words, it didn't look like the chance of a visit was taking place that day. I made myself inside and at first glance everything was fine other than just dark. We sat on the couch and talked for a while. His wife and baby weren't there at the moment. He offered me a drink and then headed into the kitchen. While I was there alone, I wondered why he kept the room so dark, so I got up and opened the curtains. As I did this, I heard a noise on the floor. At the time, my friend rushed back with the drinks and I assumed he just tripped something on the way. Then, as I sat back on the couch, I felt a soft zap on my arm. Or it was more like a pinch or a bite. It didn't take my attention immediately and I forgot about it. It did take my attention later, however, when I started feeling zap after zap, and I genuinely thought some small animal or insect was also there in the couch trying to munch on me. I jumped out of the couch and told my friend some rodent or insect was biting me. I then looked behind the cushions and found nothing. All of a sudden my friend got so obviously nervous he stopped talking any sense. He told me not to worry and not to think about it and that he was suspicious, but he wasn't sure he should call either an exterminator or an exorcist. I thought he was just joking and I laughed as well, but only for a very short moment. As I proceeded to lay sideways on the couch and rest my body on my elbow first, I heard a growl coming out of the thin air under me, followed by a strong zap on my arm, and my face switched lights off from a smile into a complete expression of terror. I almost flew off the windows in an instinctive attempt to run from danger, and any trace of reason left my brain. Shouted my friend to leave, but he looked indifferent about it and he was also trying to calm me down. My friend then told me there was a duende in the house that messes only with him from time to time. He was being randomly zapped frequently and heard it making weird noises, and it was worse the more light was in the room, but it didn't give him any bigger trouble other than just that. He asked me not to tell a thing about it to his wife because she or the baby didn't notice anything yet, and he was worried she would want them to leave for a new house if she knew. I told him I wasn't comfortable there anymore and I left the house to never come over again. I have only talked with them by phone since, and it's me who avoids any visits from them in fear they don't come alone anymore.
When I was between the ages of 5 to 10, I can't remember. I heard my voice repeat itself 1 second after I talked. I was at my grandma's house on the 2nd floor and slept with my sister there, but I was alone that night. For some reason I began talking to myself, saying random things like blah blah. Then for some unexplainable reason, whenever I said something I heard it repeat after 1 second, higher pitched and quieter. I said hello and heard my exact same voice repeat once. For some reason this didn't scare me. I never felt scared while hearing it. I said stuff, and whatever was repeating it kept going. Then I ran out of things to say, so I began babbling. Ajsaj I said, and it exactly repeated. All I said, it repeated too. I don't remember for how long I talked to that thing, but I never felt fear. I never got out of bed to see my room. My face was covered on the bed sheets. It wasn't echo either. The 2nd floor is made out of wood and there's carpet flooring. I only heard my voice repeat that night. It never happened again. I do believe it was a duende. I'm from Latin America and duendes are a type of mythical creature. Many weird things have happened on that 2nd floor too. My grandma and I have heard someone walking upstairs when there's one up there.
My friend is Mexican. Visits Mexico every summer and during Christmas, before the plague. He's so used to seeing bizarre shit that he never brings it up because it's just normal. Tells me his sister used to wake up with little braids in her hair. She never wore braids, and they only appeared in the morning, like someone did it during the night. Another time, friend goes for a walk in the mountains. Family lives on a ranch, so there's not many people around, just open land with cactus. He hears a dull voice calling his name. Sounds like when someone is talking through a pillow, but he could make out the words. Realizes it's coming from underground. Voice tells him there's a cave nearby and he should go into it. Friend gets scared and runs home. Friend's uncle is a badass. Goes out walking to town one day. Comes back running up to the ranch out of breath. Says a bunch of little men attacked him. He shot a couple but it didn't do much. He ended up running away. They stopped just outside the ranch gates. My friend didn't see them, but there were little footprints everywhere.
I have one story that happened around the 80s to my family. I was not around at the time, but everyone talked about it for years. Whole family is having a party in a property with a small house and a huge yard. Uncles and parents are drinking outside. Moms and aunts are cooking and talking inside. Kids are playing. It is around 6 p.m. and the sun is setting. There is a small area shaped like a cave where tools, wood, scrap, and shit is stored. Out of nowhere, kids start screaming and running away from the cave. They tell their dads and uncles there is something in the cave, but they ignore the kids. They tell Grandpa, who goes there to investigate. As he is getting inside, he describes seeing a little man peeking from one of the corners. It is mumbling. Grandpa calls for help and everyone gets there. Everyone gathers at the cave and hears noises inside. Suddenly, the little man gets out and starts running into the bushes and leaves the property. When it got out, everyone ran away from the cave and they could not get a good look at it. When things settled, they started to look for the thing, traces of it, footprints, etc. But there was nothing. Some members of the family believed it was a duende. Some others thought it was a prank from the teens playing with a poppet despite seeing the thing running. One uncle got really obsessed with duendes and similar beings, studying and trying to catch them for years.
I was born and raised in the Philippines. We moved to the US when I was 11 years old. This story took place in the Philippines when I was 7 years old. I can recall some of the stuff that happened to me, but not to the fullest. My uncle retold the story again to me later on when I got a little older. And then from time to time when we have family gatherings, someone in my family would retell the story again as it was a bit mind-boggling. The story started when my dad and I went to visit his sister, my aunt, and my cousins in the province. My aunt has 3 children. One is my age and the other 2 are a couple of years older than I was. When we got to their house, I remember my aunt and cousins came running out of the house to greet us with such joy and excitement. After the initial visit, my cousins and I went outside to play hide and seek. My older cousin was the seeker while everyone else hid. My aunt's house was out in the woods. Her house was surrounded by mountains and trees after trees and tall grasses. There's this belief in the Philippines that most duendes live in the forest or a place where there's lots of trees. And if you cross their path, without saying, "Tabi tabi panuno," meaning, "Pardon or excuse me little people," they will cast a bad spell on you. It all depends on the duende you came across with. Some are nice and some are evil. If you cross an evil duende, she can cast a death wish on you. Some can give you warts all over your body and make you ugly and hideous, so people will be disgusted of you and don't want to be around you. Back to playing hide and seek. My cousin was the seeker and everyone hid. I wanted to hide where my cousin couldn't find me. So I saw this very big tree, what seemed to be like 100-year-old tree. Around it, I found a little hole and that's where I hid. Without thinking and forgetting what my elders told me about duendes, I forgot to say what we're supposed to say and hid for a long time in the tree. After what seemed to be forever hiding, I came out of the hole and went back to where my cousins were. They said that they have given up looking for me, since they didn't find me anywhere. That evening before dinner, I started not feeling too good. I remember the shivers, the many trips to the bathroom vomiting, and after that I can honestly say that I don't remember what else happened. But my dad and aunt told me that I was practically in a coma for 3 days. They said that in some cases, I was hallucinating. I would sweat heavily, laugh, cry, and sometimes I would talk to someone in front of me as if someone was there. But there was no one there. They even took me to a local hospital, but the doctors couldn't tell my family what was wrong with me. So my aunt asked her kids what we did outside. My cousins told my dad and aunt that all we did was play hide and seek. They said that I was gone a long time and that they couldn't find where I hid. My dad and aunt then knew that maybe I was a victim of an evil duende. They took me to an albulario, witch doctor, to find out what was wrong with me. As my dad explained to me, he said that as soon as they brought me inside the witch doctor's house, the witch doctor knew that I was being played or something evil was in my presence. The witch doctor lit a candle, took a tub and poured about 1 inch or 2 of water in it. Then she mixed a few drops of some special oil that comes from a plant with the water. While chanting in some weird language, she took the lit candle and poured the melted wax in the tub with the water and oil. As she poured the wax, a figure started to form. My uncle said that the melted wax on the water formed a huge tree with the hole. Inside the hole was a human, which was supposed to be me, and around me was about 4 or 5 duendes. Some were just standing there staring at me, and some looked like they were throwing something at me. So the witch doctor had advised my family to take me back where that big tree was and to say, "Tabi tabi panuno," and bring some fruits for offerings. That same day, my dad and aunt took me to the tree and excused me from any wrongdoings and brought with them plenty of fruits. All I remember was waking up the next day without any recollections of what had happened to me.
This one may not be as creepy, but it made the news back in the day. Living in a building in Zaragoza, September 1934. Sleeping one night. Wake up because I hear loud laughter. I can't tell where the laughter is coming from, so I head to the front door. The neighbor next to me is also outside. Several neighbors are awake because of the laughter, which has been going on for several minutes now. Nobody can tell where it's coming from. Some people say it's coming from inside the walls. A couple months later, the young servant is getting food ready, turns the fire on, loud scream, "Don't turn that on, you'll burn me!" More screams. Lady and her servant ran outside. The police intervened. After some research, they decide the servant is faking all the screams and tell her to spend a couple of weeks outside the building. Screams stop for a couple of days, but the voice comes back. At some point, the police are doing some research with lanterns, and when they turn the lanterns off to leave, they hear a voice. "Light, I can't see." The voice keeps taunting the neighbors. Servant comes back because it obviously isn't her. Case turns so popular it even appears on the Times. At some point, the voice, now referred to as El Duende, word equivalent to the Nordic elf or goblin, but here used as a precursor to poltergeist, threatens to kill every neighbor on the building. Investigators are convinced the servant is to blame because she's some kind of unaware ventriloquist. People go to the building en masse to hear the Duende. Medium is contacted, performs a seance and ends up dying right at the end. Neighbors are evicted a couple of times to avoid more deaths. Voices and screams stop overnight. Nobody knows what happened to this day. Though to be fair, no serious investigation was conducted, and it peaked in fame, so a lot of the stories that were told could be fabricated. It's also the first time in history a paranormal case was officially researched by the authorities in Spain.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.